This conference will now be recorded.
All right. Well, good morning, everybody. We're going to officially start our KLDC meeting. It's a little after 8. Thank you all for joining us remotely. And one of the first things we've got on our agenda, Paul and Don are here this morning to talk to us a little bit about a new potential fund that they've been working on to potentially help support our small businesses. And they're going to just give us a quick overview of, what they're proposing and what the structure would kind of look like. Maybe there's some role for us to play at some point. And so Don, Paul, I don't know who wants to start, but Don, do you want to start?
Yeah, I'll start. Steve, that synopsis that I had written, did you share that with the group?
I don't know if I have. I don't think I did. So I don't know.
All right, so let me give I'll give the layman's version for, then Paul can get a little bit more into the details. But the idea is it's really social impact investing. We're creating a fund to allow local investors to invest in our local businesses. And it's our businesses would take this money not as debt, but really as an equity investment in their business. So it could be 1 or 2%, depends on the money, and the terms of this investment are variable. Each company, each small business would agree to terms that they're comfortable with. It might be a 10-year term, and they will. So they'll take, let's say, $15,000 or $20,000. They'll pay back in 10 years, and in 10 years they'll pay back plus 20% kicker. Or maybe they'll pay, instead of that, they'll pay everybody 5% in form of dividends every year that would be paid to the fund. Or maybe a massage therapist might say, you know what, I'll pay back in 10 years, but I'm not going to pay dividend. I'm not going to pay any along the way, but I will give my investors a free massage every 3 months. Or a restaurant might give, dinner to families and that are investors. So this would be a fund where the city would act. Well, I'll let Paul get into the actual roles, who would be the sponsor and who would be the syndicator, things like that. But the simple idea is local people, both small investors and large investors, will be able to invest in their local community. These are risky investments, and that would be made clear that it's, this is not the wise. This is, if you're looking to make a smart investment, that's not what this is about. This is about helping your community, and yeah, hopefully you'll make some money in the end if the business survives and prospers. There's the minimum could be $500, but it could also take a $10 or $50 or $100,000 investment from an accredited investor. So certainly it could be, it might be a small fund, it might be a few $100,000, but it could also be several million or more. Depends on how many businesses are interested in participating, how many investors we can attract. So and we did discuss a component of the opportunity zone. And this is something that that might be a little more complex. When Paul first came up with this idea, he started with the opportunity zone, meaning that opportunity zones are not just for real estate, that if you are an investor with capital gains and you make an investment in an opportunity zone, you can defray or remove the taxes on those capital gains if you're investing in real estate or a business that happens to be in an opportunity zone. And since Kingston has several large opportunity zones, that seemed like it might be an interesting play. But in consultation with our attorneys, that brings another level of complexity to this. So that might be a phase 2, or that might be a separate fund that we would do. But that's just another component that could be interesting. So Paul, do you want to give a sense of the city's role and the board of who's going to be making these choices about where the money is going and how that might work.
Yeah, so first let me give a little preface. Good morning, everybody. How are you? Hope everybody's good. I've been moderating a lot of conferences across the country over the last 4 or 5 weeks in our real estate community. And I was moderating the Kentucky State Association of Realtors meeting, and they had an economic development person on there. And somebody asked a question about opportunity zones. And we ended up getting into this conversation. And Kingston, we can't overlook the fact that we've got 2 opportunity zones in town. And that's really where this idea started. And, in addition to this vehicle, the word should get out that businesses can seek recapitalization. BA is a banker. I'm a recovered banker. I don't shake anymore, CB. So, at a certain point, businesses don't need more debt. They need grants or they need recapitalization, so it's where the money is put on their balance sheet is critical. A debt component is not looked at favorably by other lenders if they're going for other monies later on or trying to buy something, but equity is. You could take a Main Street restaurant in, let's call it uptown here, La Canard for an example. John Jock has a lot of well-heeled customers. If he needed a $30,000, $50,000, whatever the number cash infusion is, he knows who his high net worth customers are that are in there, dropping hundreds of dollars, if not, $500 a month on meals in that place. And he could convert those into equity investors. So say, Rich Matthews was coming in with a $10,000 investment because he had confidence in John Jock and wanted to prop him up. He could say, hey, JJ, I'll give you, I'll put this equity in. I'll give you 2 choices. I want a 5% return along the way. And then, you buy me out with a little premium at the end. If he does that, brings you in as an opportunity zone investor, that gain at the end, that kicker is most important because that's tax-free to the investor. But along the way, Rich puts in $10,000, agrees to a 5% interest rate along the way. That's $500 a year. JJ could offer that to him and say, hey, tell you what, instead of $500 in meals, I'm going to give you $1,000 in meals, because his cost of goods sold is really probably only hovering around 28 or 32%. So he's actually ahead of the game on the deal. He's got the use of the money, and there's ways for our Main Street businesses to structure deals with their good customers who is a friendly investor. So that conversation expanded. I do a lot of private equity. We form capital syndications, if not every couple of weeks, at least once a month on the acquisition of real estate. So I'm used to pulling investors together, doing the private placement memorandums, subscription agreements, and all those documents, which are mostly just boilerplate. So, this idea to bring and provide a vehicle for people to not only be able to invest in Wall Street, but be able to invest in their local Main Street could have a lot of merit. So, we kicked it up another level where we could have an exchange in a bunch of different municipalities or have offerings. And so what we're looking to do is create a replicable set of documents, a private placement memorandum with complete document set. We're probably looking at $20,000 to $30,000 to get the SEC approved documents that are able to be filed ready, so that a group could form, just like we did with the Hudson Valley Startup Fund. And you're probably all familiar with Johnny Lahane, Chad Gomes, myself, and a few others started the Hudson Valley Startup Fund. We actually did 2 funds, and we have 50 members in each one of those funds. And we pooled all these people together, and we're making investments in our local Hudson Valley companies. We put a loan committee together, or an investment committee, I should say. We've got a pipeline committee that kind of feeds the pipeline, vets people preliminarily, and then they get kicked into the due diligence committee, which decides how the deal is going to get structured and whether or not we're really going to do the deal. So, the idea is, and, we're out looking now for donations to seed this. We've approached a couple different funds and endowments trying to get seed here. But, the concept would be that City of Kingston forms a committee that becomes the sponsors of the deal. They would be the board of directors. We would assemble the documents again in a replicable fashion so that New Paltz or any other municipality could take the ball and run with it, just change maybe a few of the parameters. But we would offer up a base structure, what the board structure is, the committee structures. Obviously, in the private placement memorandum, that is a disclosure document under SEC auspices. So we would indemnify all of the people who are on those committees, that they are not culpable. And again, it's all about disclosure. Then that committee would go out and solicit funds. I've spoken to a couple marketing companies about putting some marketing package together, and we'd go out and solicit, whatever donations local people wanted to make. I've been calling it the customer owner fund. So you could be a customer and owner of your favorite places in town. So, you think of the, social appeal to be able to go, hey, I want to prop up my Main Street businesses. There's this fund and I'm going to put $500 into it. I'm going to put 1,000. I'm going to put 10,000 into it. And then that group would then go out and cut the deal with the John Jocks, the, retailer on Wall Street to downtown, and provide an equity vehicle. Come year-end time, that group would have a CPA retained that would do the normal accounting, act as controller, cut the checks. There's very little cash flow in and out, so it's not really tough to manage the checkbook. You're making an investment, and then, and occasionally a return check will come in. And then that accountant would distribute K1s at the end of the year. So, to me, it's kind of a simple concept because we do it all the time. But again, bringing it up one step further, I'm talking to 2 different online crowdfunding sites. One is Equity Multiple, the other is Crowdsource. And I'm talking to them about a potential JV on being the manager. So, if you can imagine, we've got 20 municipalities in the Hudson Valley who each have a separate fund. There could be a exchange or a marketplace where people could go online. If we had these across New York State, what a cool thing to go pitch to the state teachers union endowment, which is probably impossible to get them to invest, but they could see that, hey, there's 50 of these municipal funds across New York State. We should take a small piece of our endowment, which would probably be 20 or 50 million, and distribute it throughout, equitably across all of these municipalities and really make a social impact investment here.
I just would like to get some feedback. What do you guys
say? At this point, that's kind of the concept. But Rich looks intrigued.
I think from my perspective, I thought I would just share that I do think it's a great opportunity for us to, invest in our local businesses. And I'm, really interested in trying to, kind of see this out. I think one of the reasons why I wanted you guys to brief members of the KLDC to, be able to let our board know. Thankfully, this is recorded, so those board members that missed today can watch it and kind of get a firsthand review of what this is all about. The second thing, and something that Mandy and I are working on, and again, we don't have anything to present to the board today related to this, but we wanted to, I wanted to see is if the state budget authority's office would let the KLDC play any type of kind of technical assistance role in terms of helping to fund some of the legal paperwork and to kind of help be kind of one of the startup organizations that could help get this fund on its feet. We haven't heard back from the ABO yet, but we expect to in the next couple of days to just make sure that and then I would come to the board to ask, with an actual proposal of, what it would cost and what role we could play or not play. We won't have that discussion today because we don't even know if we can do it or not yet, but we are trying to find that out, if that's something that's allowable. But that's just in general my sense. Does any other board member have any comments that they like to share? And then we do have to get kind of moving on to our application process for all of the small business loans that we got. But if we want to spend another minute with any initial feedback, and if not, we'll move on to the rest of our agenda.
I would just say that it's a beautiful idea, and obviously you guys have done a lot of thinking on it. The only thing that jumped out at me is I think the investors would know, right, that they certainly may not see anything at the end of the tunnel when there's a time horizon offered of 10 years or something like that. Probably by the stats, a lot of businesses just are not in it for a decade. But
So
if they
was an opportunity fund is the only 10-year requirement. It could be a 2-year window if it was just a regular fund. That's only an opportunity. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. All right. Yeah, good. No, I think it's very intriguing and very creative.
I have just a couple questions. So just to be clear, the KLDC's role, we're not going to discuss this now, but the idea is that we would help sponsor to get this fund launched, and then we would act as arbiter in some circumstance to determine who might be eligible, or are we to actually program this and run the program? It seemed like that seemed to be somewhat of your talk.
Right. Well, we're going to build a replicable program that's going to be plug and play for you with suggested board structures. Even, we've gone down as deep as here's suggested formation documents as an operating agreement, how your committee should be structured, all that type of stuff. And we're going to replicate it against the Hudson Valley Startup Fund, which is member managed.
You're saying you mean City of Kingston, right? Not KLDC.
Well, so what KLDC, I think the request here, because we're out actively soliciting, it's going to be about $50,000+ to get this off the ground, even for one municipality. And just a little extra thought to make it replicable, because each, of those 10% of sections in the documents, we'd identify those and maybe have multiple choice options, because we're going to be making those choices as we assemble the base documents. So we will record those so that, for the next fund, it's, pretty much plug and play. Then, I don't think the KLDC directly would be the sponsor, but you guys would be, I guess, critical in forming the team, because we'd have to go out, just like you were asked to volunteer to be on the KLDC here, who wants to be, the sponsors of this fund, and, the main advocates that are really going to be the public face and go out and do the fundraising.
Cool. And have you looked into a direct public offering as a filing status to get unaccredited investors involved?
Yeah, so we can do that. It can only be up to $1 million with 100 investors on a crowdfunding platform. Again, easy stuff to do. There's websites that do it and can handle that whole back end. The toughest thing of any type of investment like this is the investor management. And there's platforms out there that we can leverage, who I'm negotiating with, to be the sponsors, and create, it's going to be great marketing for them to create a national exchange of all these little funds. And part of that ask is, hey, any profits that you make from it, we want thrown back into the, into the pool, right? Because again, it's a social impact investment, not necessarily designed to be a moneymaker for anybody.
Right. I'm in touch with 2 platforms, Mainvest and Honeycomb, that do that. If you'd like an introduction, I'm happy to provide that.
Yeah, that's great. Awesome. But there could be an accredited investor fund where you're soliciting local accredited investors for larger sums, and then you could have a crowdfunding, fund that could be up to $1 million. And again, if we create the documents, it's really filing another LLC, doing the other filing with the SEC, which is $150, and opening another bank account, and you start crowdfunding. The hardest thing again is getting those base documents together, which we're already down the path and had the conversations with legal. They're teed up, ready to go. We're looking for the first municipality to step to the plate. And, I'm also thinking, about the exchange in the back end. So again, I don't want to take up too much of your time. Just wanted to seed the idea. Happy to have conversations on the side with anybody.
Paul, I do have a question before you step off. At the end of the day, ultimately, who runs the show?
It's committee driven, just like the Hudson Valley Startup Fund. So
Is it
we're all
your committee
co-investors,
or
but
the-
in the documents, we're called managers. So we're really administrators. So we don't have any authority. It's got to be by vote of the subcommittees, which are put in place by all of the shareholders. And then we're administrators. So we get direction from the investment committee, make this investment, right? And, we handle legal and, manage the legal and the CPAs, to an outcome.
So that could, go ahead.
I guess just to follow up on that, then the link between, say, KLDC and the committee, your committee structure is what?
I look for you guys and the Common Council and whoever else you got to brainstorm and say, hey, who are the 10 committee people that are best suited to drive this, manage legal and manage the CPA on a, just like you guys are doing. You guys have loan documents and you guys got a CPA. Same exact, I'm just a different format and different document structure. But again, to get people to be on a committee, I'm sure you guys hope you guys have some form of indemnification, so there's no recourse against you in your position, but, we'd look to do that. I'm like on the Hudson Valley Startup Fund. I'm indemnified because I don't really have authority to make decisions. There's a structure that makes the decisions that everybody bought into.
But just to restate what you're saying, who's the stallion, right? Who's pulling this? Who's in charge?
Yes.
That's an open question. That could be KLDC, that could be the city. Paul saying that we will facilitate and do the back end and get it all, ready to go. But yes, there needs to be someone to step up to the plate and say, I got it.
Okay. I mean, I look at it just from a concern, and Steve alluded to this early with the ABO, just from the legality of it itself. Can we, since it sounds like it's going to be outside funds, an outside board, outside structure, can we even do this to begin with? That'd be one of my initial concerns. Yeah.
So I think the question would be, number one, can you make a grant to support an initiative like this, of X? No, we got to know. Okay. And I don't personally think that you are the right vehicle to own it, but it's something that you could form on the side. You know what I mean? So you guys could be, not responsible, but the instigators of putting the committee together. You know what I mean? And again, it's not just you guys. This has got to be a community effort here.
I'd imagine we could seed a fund though. We could place an investment for a return.
Well,
I don't know if we can, if it's an outside and we have no control over that, Miles. That would be my concern, either legal and with the ABO. I just don't know clarification on that point.
So we're checking all of that, right? And I think that's why, today was kind of the quick intro, if you will. And then, so Mandy is definitely, these are reached out to the ABO to find out, what kind of, options we have, to do any technical assistance or any investments or any type of, legal or financial support to get documents ready. We're trying to find out whether we can do that as just part of our overall economic development mission. Because our bylaws are very broad in terms of supporting economic development in the city. And so the question is, by support, can we, help start up a fund to support economic development in the city? Does that fall within our mission? And I think that that's what the ABO is going to look at.
And you guys are the closest thing to already executing something like this, because the fund could have a component where you do revolving loans. That's how we do it with the Hudson Valley Startup Fund. We don't make investments initially. we do what's called convertible debt. We loan you the money for 2 years, and then at our option, we convert to shares, because that takes the risk out of it, because if they're a startup, there could be recourse against the investors. So, we mitigate a lot of things along the way. And, again, thank you all for your time. Glad to continue the conversation. We are going to be continuing the conversation. Would love to, launch this locally. And don't know what the structure is, but just wanted to start a conversation.
Thank you guys very much. We appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you guys. Have a great day.
So, could I have a motion to enter into executive session for us to review applications for our micro loan program?
So moved.
Pat the first, CBA was the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Quick question. We have
Yes,
three
ma'am.
people who are not in video. I just need to know who they are so I can write them down.
Do the folks on the phone want to just, you can unmute yourself.
Is my voice coming through? This is Glenn. This is Al here. I hear you guys.
Brad?
I got everybody. Thank you.
All right. So we are now going to go ahead. I'm going to turn off the recording.
This conference will now be recorded.
All right. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So move, Al.
Thank you, Al. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Miles. All right. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Thank you all. I appreciate your time today. We'll see you next Tuesday. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks. Yep.
Thanks.